Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? I am very excited to be back today, guys. I had to take off last week because I was ultra sick. To be honest, what's crazy is I am still not 100%. It has been 2 weeks and I am still not back to 100%. So yeah, I got my butt kicked pretty hard. So sorry I did not stream last week. It was like impossible. I was really suffering. Today is officially 2 weeks in and I am still not 100%. I am way better, hence why I'm able to stream, but I am still not back to 100%. So I'm hoping next week I'll fully be back, but man, yeah, I got my butt kicked. So it's great to see everyone. I'm sorry I wasn't here last week. That is why, but I am super excited for today's live chat, because we have some amazing topics to talk about today. We have no shortage of news. I mean, this is going to be a good one, guys. So what can we talk about today? Well, July NPD results just dropped literally today, so we have that to talk about. I'm going to break down all the numbers for you here in just a second. So that's going to be a big topic we can discuss, some of the sales stuff. Death Stranding is coming to Game Pass, which is pretty wild because the IP is owned by PlayStation, which makes this a little different than MLB The Show, right? Don't get me wrong, MLB The Show was crazy to see show up on Game Pass because that's a game that's made by a PlayStation studio, right? Whereas Death Stranding is not, right? That's made by Kojima Productions. But in a way, it's like they're both weirder in different ways, right? Like MLB The Show being on Game Pass is weirder than Death Stranding in one way because it's a Sony-made game, like they're like a studio they own makes it, but they don't own the MLB license. Whereas what makes Death Stranding in a way weirder than MLB is that they own the Death Stranding IP. So it's pretty weird, pretty crazy. We can talk about that. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about it. Another huge topic is going to be, I'm sure, Embracer Group buying the rights to Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and a whole bunch of other stuff. They continue to just go acquisition crazy. They're buying up just about everything they can, it seems like. So I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions about that and more. So anyone, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. You just drop them down into chat. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. However, if you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. You just type a super chat, donate whatever you want. It alerts me immediately, and I get to super chats immediately. Don't feel pressured or obligated to donate into chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel and guarantee that I get to your question. I can already tell you today that we'll see how it goes, but chat is already filling up, which I'm not surprised because the topics are great today. So we'll see how much I can get to. One other off the top housekeeping note, and then I'm going to break down the July NPD sales, and then we're going to get rocking on your guys' comments and questions. Very cool housekeeping note. Tomorrow I will be on Xbox Chatterdays for Windows Central with Miles. I'm very excited for that. That's going to be my third time on that podcast. Love Miles, great guy. So if you guys want to see some Xbox discussion as well as the video game industry at large, tune in tomorrow morning on, I think it's the Windows Central YouTube channel. We're going to be there for Xbox Chatterdays in the morning. So I'm very excited for that. Okay, let me break down two things for you guys really quick, and then I'm going to jump into your comments and questions. All right, so first of all, let's talk about July NPD really quick, just so I can give you the numbers. In terms of units for hardware, Switch was the best-selling console, followed by PlayStation 5 and then Xbox Series. If you guys remember, I was asked a couple weeks back on my predictions for July NPD, and I had told you it was literally the least confident I had been in any of my predictions for like any month this year. Like I flat out said that. I was like, I'm having a really good year, but I am not confident in this prediction at all. And there was a key reason for that. It was because Switch has been, super high all year long, but I had noticed And if you look back, I have a tweet on August 1st, which is right after July, which kind of plays into what I'm about to say. The reason why I was so unsure about NPD this month was Switch has been doing great, right? It's been number one for almost every month, but I knew that PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series both also had an increase this month. So I was like, man, how is this going to play out? Is Switch going to take the top? Is it going to be Xbox? Is it going to be PlayStation? Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised by any ranking this month. Turns out Switch keeps its top spot, which is impressive, but just like I had noted on that tweet on August 1st I sent out, Xbox and PlayStation did see significant growth. So both platforms had double-digit growth compared to last year. So that's great, right? You're seeing a nice boost there. So those did great, but Switch is able to keep its top spot. And then I imagine, I haven't seen the actual unit numbers yet on Xbox and PlayStation. Hopefully I get to see them, but you never know. I have a feeling those two are very close, judging by the rankings and how revenue shakes out and stuff, because both were ahead of Switch in revenue. Switch was third in revenue, number one in units. What that says to me is all three of these were probably pretty darn close this month, which also lines up to why I was not sure about rankings this month at all. Looks like they were probably all three pretty close to one another. So that's going to be your hardware. In terms of software performance, number one, Multiverses, that's fantastic because that is just for the Founders Pack that was tracked. So that's really impressive. This is a free-to-play game. It hits number one for the month. That shows you a ton of people were buying Founders Packs for this game. So that is pretty wild to see there. Multiverses at number one. Number two, Elden Ring. What a juggernaut. Just keep staying up there. We just got new shipment numbers as of June 30th. 16.6 million. Little bit lower than I thought. I thought it would be a little bit closer to that 20 million. It's still an insane number. It's basically doing 1 million a month because what we had gotten as of March was that it was at like 13.3, something like that. I might be off a little bit, but it was 13 million. Now, 3 months later, in terms of time frame of tracking, 16.6. That basically shows you it's doing right around 1 million a month. Unbelievable performance for Elden Ring. This is locked to pass 20 million this year. There's 0% chance it misses it. It's been doing 1 million a month last quarter, and that's before holidays and steep discounts. This game's only 3.4 million away, still with 6 months of tracking left for the calendar year. It's going to pass 20 million. There's like 0% chance it misses. So 20 million is now a lock for the calendar year, which is incredible for Elden Ring. Number three, another incredible result that we just keep seeing crazy legs for, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. I mean, this game, incredible. It was the biggest, fastest selling Lego game ever, and it hasn't stopped. Incredible to still be top three. Number four, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, great result. That's the highest a Xenoblade game has ever ranked in NPD. No Xenoblade game has ever charted that high. And also, this is only with a couple days of sales and the lacking digital. So that shows you for a JRPG that's exclusive to one platform, not only does it rank the highest ever in the franchise on the chart, it also doesn't have digital included, and that's only with a couple days. So great result for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Number 5, we got Call of Duty Vanguard. Number 6, we got MLB The Show 22. 7, Mario Kart 8. Number 8, a bit of a surprise, Digimon Survive, making the top 10. I saw a lot of people commenting on my tweet about this, excited about that. So I'd say that's a little bit of a surprise that Digimon makes top 10, but good for it. Number 9, Minecraft. Number 10, F122. 11, Kirby. 12, Smash Brothers Ultimate. 13, Animal Crossing. 14, Overwatch. Overwatch still in that top 15, and that's just with people buying that pack that got them beta access to Overwatch 2. So like we talked about last time we discussed NPD, where Overwatch was actually top 5, that shows you guys there's still a lot of demand for Overwatch. If people are still getting this game into the top 15 off of just for buying to get into the beta access, if they can actually make the game good, we'll have to see. You never know. But if Overwatch 2 is actually good and being free to play, it shows you there's still a lot of life left in that IP. Number 15, Pokemon Legends. 16, Switch Sports. 17, Black Ops Cold War. 18, Far Cry 6. 19, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. And 20 is Monster Hunter Rise. So there's your NPD results, guys. I'm going to break down one more thing, and then we're going to jump straight into your comments and questions. Last thing we're going to discuss really fast is Embracer. So Embracer acquired, for some context before we get into your questions, they just went on an acquisition spree. They seem to do this now constantly. But in one day, they announced that they bought Middle-earth Enterprises, which gives them the rights to video games, movies, board games, merchandising, theme parks, etc. for Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Crazy purchase here. I don't think any of us saw this coming. You know, them buying a video game company, not that surprising. Them buying Middle-earth, little surprising to be like, you know, to underplay it. That was a crazy purchase. They bought Tripwire Interactive, who's known for Killing Floor and Maneater, so a pretty big independent studio there to buy. They bought Limited Run Games, which is interesting because that's a distributor of physical games. Very interesting to see there. They bought Tuxedo Labs, Singtrix, and then the big unknown that we still don't have an answer for. They bought an undisclosed studio that also makes PC and console games. So we don't know. Could be anybody. They haven't said who it is. What we know is that this purchase is likely smaller than Tripwire Interactive because they said that it will be the third or fourth most expensive out of these purchases. Clearly, number one and number two out of these is going to be Middle-earth Enterprises and Tripwire. Those are going to be your two biggest out of this batch. So that means it's smaller than Tripwire, but Tripwire is a pretty big studio. So it could still be a decently sized, independently owned team. But we don't know who that is yet. So pretty crazy, guys. All right, that is the breakdowns. Let's get to your comments and questions. Fill that chat up now if you're here because, like I said, the chat is filling. So if you want me to be able to get to your question today, now is the time to drop that question. All right, let's get rocking. Joseki. Oh, wait, there was a super chat. Let me hit that super chat first. There was. Frostbite / boom. Thank you so much, Frostbite. Always being so supportive in chat with the super chats. I really appreciate it, Frostbite. Frostbite / dropping a 10 here. Helldivers 2 trailer just leaked out yesterday. I think a PlayStation showcase is coming soon as Sony are not partaking in Gamescom. I agree with you, Frostbite. Can't wait as the first game is awesome and very underrated. Frostbite, I agree with you completely. So for anyone that missed this, Helldivers 2, it was like about 10 seconds worth of video. Footage of the trailer was leaked yesterday on Twitter. It was rapidly taken down, which just proves it was real. I mean, anyone that saw the leaked footage, it was obvious it was real. This was not like... It was a professionally made trailer, like you could tell. You know, you didn't see a ton, but what you saw, it wasn't like one of those things where it was a weird off-angle, you know, picture and it's just a logo and that could be fake. Like, if you saw this, it was clearly a professionally made trailer. And then that got pulled immediately down from copyright strike. So that shows you, first of all, if you saw it, you knew it was real. And second of all, the copyright strike just confirms that it's real. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Frostbite. September is when there's going to be a Sony showcase. This is not a leak. This is not insider info. But people have been asking me all year long, when's Sony going to have a showcase? When Sony's going to have a showcase? And my answer has always been the same. I've been saying it. It's going to be September. Now, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Because like I said, this is not insider info. It's just looking at the way the last couple years have gone. Sony have now multiple years in a row had a big showcase in September. So that just always seemed like the date for them, for me. I think the part of the reason they do that is because it's right before the fall holiday season. I think they want to drive excitement about the brand, get people all hyped up, seeing this big showcase, and go out and buy PlayStation games and PlayStation consoles. So I think that's part of, it's probably not the only reason, but I think that's part of the reason why they've been targeting September now instead of summer. I think they're trying to get that fall hype going. So September, this trailer leaking only reinforces what I've been believing for a long time. If you have Sony right now making first-party trailers for games, which we know is happening because Helldivers 2 has a trailer ready to go, where would you be showing that, right? Of course, you could say Gamescom, but it's sounding like Sony doesn't have a big presence at Gamescom. So September showcase makes a perfect amount of sense. That's where they can probably show God of War again. That game's about to come out, so they've got to show God of War footage soon. What better time than early September, considering we're already at the end of August? So you got Helldivers 2 you can show, you got God of War footage you can show, and of course some other announcements and reveals. So I agree, Frostbite. September showcase sounds perfectly correct for Sony. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't happen. I would have been surprised all year because I've been saying all year September, but I'll be particularly surprised after this Helldivers 2 leak if there's not. So I'm with you, Frostbite. I'm very much expecting it. Matt Duffy with a 2 super chat saying, let's go, Matt Duffy. Thank you for the hype every single time. Thank you for the support every single time. And let's go, Matt Duffy. I hope you're doing amazing today, buddy. Thank you for the super chat, being so supportive and always bringing the hype, man. You rock. Kelligrim with a 10 saying, sup, Benji, and great to see you, Kelligrim. Dude, great to see you, homie. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate that, man. You don't got to do that, but it's great to see you in chat. Thanks for always being so supportive and a good guy there, Kelligrim. You rock, man. Sup, Benji, has Monster Hunter Rise surpassed World in sales? What are the odds we see a World 2? Hope you feel better, man. Well, thank you so much, Kelligram. Like I said, I think the worst is definitely behind me. I think I had COVID. What's crazy is I tested negative for COVID multiple times, but I know several people in the last month or two that happened to, and then eventually tested positive. My symptoms were like spot on for COVID. I've had it once before, and it felt very, very similar in a lot of ways. Some differences, but very similar. I never ended up testing positive, but I'm telling you, the symptoms really felt like it. So I think that's what I had. I don't know for sure. I'll probably never know now because I haven't been tested in a while. I tested, like I said, a couple times in a row. They were both negative, and so I stopped testing. But I know people that tested negative like up to 3 and 4 times and then eventually tested positive in the last month or two. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if the new strain maybe is harder to test for, or who knows. But I think that's what it was. But like I said, the worst feels like it's behind me now for sure, thankfully. Now, in terms of Rise, it has not passed World yet. It's not going to pass World, but it is doing incredible. So let me pull up the most recent numbers so I can give you that comparison really quick. It's still incredible, okay? So it's not going to pass World because World's multi-platform, but it's still a huge result. A huge result. Okay. So yeah, Monster Hunter World, not counting Iceborne, right? Just World by itself is at 18.3 million units, so almost 20 million. Once if you include Iceborne, because Monster Hunter World Iceborne is at 9.5 million, and I don't know exactly how they separate that. I believe the Master Edition, or whatever it's called, that includes World and Iceborne together, I think that's part of Iceborne's sales. I don't think that gets factored into regular World sales. I think World sales are just by itself. Now, if I'm correct on that, I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but if I'm right, clearly World is over 20 million once you factor in that Master Edition that comes with Iceborne as well. Now, Rise is only at 10.3 million, so you're talking basically half. Couple things to keep in mind there, though. First of all, World's been out way longer than Rise. And second of all, Rise was only on one platform, right? It's Switch exclusive, whereas you had World on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, and it did great on all 3 of those platforms. So that's going to be very hard for Rise to overcome. It did come to PC, but it came to PC later. So, a chunk of those sales were only Switch at first. Then later came to PC. That's going to still rise over time, right? Switch is going to sell more units. PC is going to sell more units. But no, I don't expect it to pass World in sales. But it's still an amazing result, considering it completely skipped PlayStation and Xbox. That's still a fantastic result for that game. I think you're definitely going to get World 2. It was part of the Capcom leak a while back. My guess is it's been delayed. I believe the original date for that was targeting 2024 in the Capcom leaks. Or it might have even been 2023, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I think it might have been next year. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I don't expect World 2 before 2024, I don't think. I'd be very surprised if you get World 2 next year. But 2024 is what I'm expecting. I think you're going to get a Rise 2 as well. I think you'll get sequels to both, if Nintendo still wants an exclusive Monster Hunter game. You know what I mean? So you'll definitely get World 2 and very likely Rise 2, as long as Nintendo's still going to angle for getting their own exclusive Monster Hunter, because both were huge successes. Timmer with the 2 super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. Thank you so much, man. No question today. Just wanted to show my support. Well, thank you so much, Timmer. You're always so supportive, man. I always appreciate those super chats. To any of you guys that give super chats, very much appreciated. You keep rocking on Twitter, Timmer, and thank you for the support. All right, super chats are cleared. Let's get to your guys' free questions. All right, Joseki here, kicking us off with the free ones. Hello, Benji. What's up? I hope you're doing fantastic. I noticed that in today's NPD, top 25 games were Microsoft and Activision, because we can kind of start to factor that in, right? Activision's going to be acquired by Microsoft. This is not going to get shut down. I know you're seeing some people still wondering. Guys, I'm at like 90+% confident that this gets closed. So, top 25 games were Microsoft and Activision, 7 Nintendo. Sony needs more first-party evergreens. I do agree with that. The only real heavy evergreens we've seen out of Sony recently, right? We're talking very recently. The only ones we've really seen stick around in the charts is like Miles Morales. People are going to bring up Horizon Forbidden West here, but that's only in the UK, and that's only because they're tracking bundled sales as part of software. Like if you look at US NPD, Horizon has not been high on these charts for months, ever since it came out, really. February it was good, and then March it was okay, and then it was pretty much gone, right, or very low. So you saw something similar with Ratchet & Clank. You've seen something similar with Returnal. On PlayStation 5, I've noticed that Sony has not been able to have many evergreens yet. Miles Morales being the big exception. Miles Morales has had fantastic legs. So that one is, right? We can definitively say that. But other than that, on PS5, they really haven't been getting these evergreens going yet. We did see some late in the PS4 cycle, right? You saw Ghost of Tsushima do awesome, have great legs. You saw Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, right, do very, very good. But I've noticed that. I've actually been having some conversations with people about that. On PS5, they haven't been able to hit that evergreen status yet on many games. Probably a big factor in that we can assume is install base. It is growing, but it's still not gigantic. And I think we have a lot of evidence that a lot of people are waiting to get some of these first-party games until they get PS5s, right? Whereas PS4 had a huge install base by the time you got to games like Ghost of Tsushima. So I do agree with you, Joseki. I think that Sony themselves would agree, hence why you're seeing so many games as a service titles in development there. They can still have some huge sellers. They can still have some games hit, 15, 20 million plus. But I agree they do have a little bit of work to do on PS5 to get more evergreens. And I think they'll get there. I think you will see more pop up. And don't forget Miles, because Miles Morales did have great legs. But yes, we haven't seen it necessarily out of games like Demon Souls, Returnal, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. There hasn't been many of those yet. God of War will be, though. God of War is going to be a juggernaut. Also, Benji, what are your expectations for Soul Hackers 2 in the US? That's not great reviews. The lack of marketing and launching pretty close to Xenoblade aren't encouraging signs. Yeah, I'm not expecting too much crazy out of Soul Hackers. Whenever those previews came out and they were pretty glowing, and then you saw Famitsu give it a very good score, I was starting to be like, maybe scores in the West are going to be really strong too, because previews looked good. And then you had Famitsu, which we all know they can be a little weird on scores, but that was we had that score plus we had the positive previews. I was like, man, if this can hit like mid-80s Metacritic for a JRPG, that'd be great. So I was thinking maybe we could see it overperform a little bit. But now with the current reviews, they're not terrible. It's at last I looked, high 70s. I'm not one of those people that believes games in the 70s are bad games. I just played As Dusk Falls, which is in the 70s, and I loved that game. I think there's a lot of games in the 70s that are great games. So, Soul Hackers 2 by no means is getting bad scores. It's just like you said, they're not great. It's not blowing your hair back kind of scores. So I think this is going to be pretty niche, to be honest with you. I'll be surprised if it overperforms. I hope I'm wrong, rooting for games to always succeed. But yeah, I'm not expecting a ton out of Soul Hackers 2. I agree with that. Eddie Brock. Sup, Capcom is doing so well right now. Do you think, yeah, it's insane. Capcom's just unbelievable. I've said it a lot. I think that they are the most impressive third-party Japanese publisher right now. Obviously, excluding, Nintendo and Sony, they're platform holders. Out of the third parties, I think Capcom is just on the best trajectory right now. Square Enix looks like they're turning some things around, but I've been most impressed with Capcom. Just incredible the run they're on. It's ridiculous. Do you think they will ever return to work with Marvel on Marvel vs. Capcom? Yes, when they have so much success without them. I do think it'll happen one day. How likely is it that they return to work with them? Eddie, I think it's very likely. I think you will see Marvel vs. Capcom come back. There's two main reasons I think that's going to happen. First of all, Marvel is very much trying to get a ton of games made. We're getting a lot of evidence about that through games that are announced and leaks. And also, y'all are about to get a Disney Marvel showcase that shows you how much Disney is pushing into video games right now. They are. Trust me, there's a lot of Star Wars games coming. There's a lot of Marvel games coming. So first of all, you have Marvel ready and willing to make deals. Now, we know that they did Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and that bombed, to be honest with you. But I think that there's a lot of obvious reasons behind that, and I think Capcom will see that, and I think Marvel will see that. The game had, let's just be honest, a pretty terrible art style that turned a lot of people off, and I don't think it just had like the best setup. The game didn't really feel modern enough, and like it had enough modes and it had enough options to be a big successful fighting game. So, and I think that, there's so much love in the fighting game community. I'll be very surprised if you never see it again. I think you will see it. It will be a while, though. They're going to be fully focused on Street Fighter 6 right now, so don't expect that you're going to get that announcement here at the Disney Marvel Showcase. It'd be amazing. I do think it'll happen, but I think you're going to be waiting a few years. They're going to be so focused on making sure Street Fighter 6 is good and great, which it looks fantastic, and they really need that game to hit hard. So all focus on Capcom right now, likely in terms of fighters, is just fully on Street Fighter 6. But don't be surprised in a few years if you do see one more chance at Marvel vs. Capcom. I do think it'll happen. Batman Forever. Ahoy! Do you think Embracer will allow third-party companies to make movies and games based on Lord of the Rings, or do you think they will make the Lord of the Rings IP become exclusive for Embracer and no other company? Batman, I think they're just going to be the ones making games for this. I don't see much licensing happening. The only way I could see them licensing Lord of the Rings IP would be maybe if like a platform holder wants it. Like, let's say that Xbox wanted to make an exclusive Lord of the Rings game by one of their teams, or Sony. Maybe you would see them do something like that, but the reality is Batman Forever, they own so many studios that they aren't hurting. They can give games to all kinds of people because the amount of studios they own is absurd, and it's going to keep growing, guys. In 3 months when they have their next earnings, just be prepared. They're going to announce more acquisitions. This is just what Embracer's doing. They have big money behind them. I've seen some people be like, talk about their market cap. You can't just look at Embracer's market cap. They get a ton of funding from their investors for these acquisitions. They raise funds for acquisitions all the time. So don't just look at that market cap. So there's more acquisitions coming. So they're not hurting on studios. There's no real reason for them to license the IP. It would kind of make sense if they only had, 8 to 10 internal studios and they can't always have someone to make something. But if there's one thing Embracer is not hurting on, it's the number of teams. They have over 14,000 people working for them now. So I really doubt you'll see it licensed in terms of games. I think they'll be making the games. In terms of movies, it will be very interesting to see how movies work out because they don't have a huge movie arm yet, but this could be them trying to work into that. So movies, I would say, is more up in the air. Who knows how they're going to work out movies, but games, I'll be very surprised if you see it licensed. Very surprised. Hamish Lee Ford. Hello, Benji. Why do you think we haven't seen more Starfield since E3? I was sure we would get more gameplay with QuakeCon. I was not expecting that. I think a second delay to second half of 2023 is out of the question. Thoughts? Hamish, I'm going to be honest, I don't see any of that, personally. I don't think they need to show this game anymore until it's ready to go. So, I get there were some people thinking that was going to be at QuakeCon, but I did not. Like, someone asked me, I think it was Timmer asked me last week, and I flat out said I didn't expect anything really crazy at QuakeCon, which didn't happen, which is fully what I expected. So that went exactly how I thought. If someone would have asked me how I thought, like, percentage chance Starfield was at QuakeCon, I would have put that at like 5%. They showed a lot. Like, it wasn't a small amount at E3. They showed a lot at E3. There's no real reason to show Starfield again until that game's ready to go. Like, if I was at Microsoft, I wouldn't show anything until you have a date. That's when they should show it next, because it was a lot. It wasn't just like a 3-minute trailer. You saw a lot of gameplay. You saw how the systems worked. You saw space. You saw combat. Just focus on polish right now. So the next time you show that game with a date, it looks great. It looks ready to go. Boom, bam, boom. Everything's up and running. We've got a date for you. Pre-order start now. Boom. That's when you show it. So I am not surprised at all that we haven't seen Starfield. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't expect to see Starfield until they have a date on this game, in my opinion. I don't think you see it at all until they have a release date. A second delay, I'd be pretty surprised. I don't think so, because it got a hefty delay the first time. Right, that was supposed to be November, and now all we know is that it's within the first 6 months of next year. So that could be as late as June of next year. They never said it was going to be early. You know, I saw some people assuming after the delay that they were like, oh, this is going to be, you know, March now. They never said that. You know, they just said that the games they were showing at E3 were games hitting in the next 12 months, right? That was in June. So that means 12 months later, it could be as late as June 2023. So that game could still, we're only in August, it could still have almost a year of development time left, right? Let's say it hits June next year. You're talking that game's still 10 months away. They have a lot of time to polish that. So I'd be very surprised if it catches a second delay, and I'm also not too surprised we didn't see it, because I don't think they'll show it again until they have a date on it. Kind of like Redfall, right? They just did this awesome, I really liked it, this Making of Redfall documentary thing at QuakeCon. And if you notice, there wasn't much new gameplay footage there. Like, yeah, they talked about the game a lot, and I really liked it. I liked a lot of what they were saying, but it wasn't a ton of new gameplay, because Redfall is probably going to be the same way. You're not going to get like a huge gameplay blowout until they have a date on that as well. Casual Gamer. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I don't think I have. I'm pretty sure not, but I just want to make sure. No. Casual Gamer, hello. Does superhero games have to be centered around popular heroes / villains and single player to be successful, or could other genres / less popular hero characters still be successful if a game is good? Well, we're going to kind of find that out with Amy Hennig's game if the rumors are right. The rumors bouncing around right now is that Amy Hennig's game is Fantastic Four. And Fantastic Four is not, I would say, the most like in-demand characters right now. Now, I don't know at all if this game is Fantastic Four, to be very clear. I'm not saying this as like ultra insider confidence. I'm saying that's what rumors are rumbling around, is that it's a Fantastic Four game. And something also hinted at that in the Disney Marvel Showcase announcement, where they announced that Amy Hennig's Skydance game is going to be there, and they described it as an ensemble game, an ensemble cast, which lines again up with Fantastic Four, right? It's an ensemble cast. You have the 4 Fantastic Four family members. So if that is Fantastic Four, and to be clear, I'm not saying it's Fantastic Four, I'm saying that's what the rumors rumbling around are. If that's what it is, that'll be a pretty good test to see if you can do it outside of the most iconic characters, because I know that Fantastic Four is well known, but they're not super beloved, to be honest. Does it have its fans? Yes, but it's not an ultra beloved, IP nowadays. So if that game can come out and be successful, that'll tell us a lot. And if that is the characters, again, I don't know that. That's just rumors. Now, other genres, I think you can go multiplayer, but you need to be very careful. I think single player is still the main way that most of these superhero games should be made, to be honest with you. Optional co-op, not a bad idea, right? Optional co-op. But I think having your game fully built around co-op, maybe not the best idea. Like a games as a service approach, like we saw out of Avengers, for example. Gotham Knights is really co-op focused, but they seem to be pivoting that you can play that game single player as well. Who knows? Maybe Spider-Man 2 has co-op. We have reasons to believe that Spider-Man 2 might have co-op. I don't know if anyone's going to ask about that today, but I don't know that. But there's some interesting things that point towards that game could have co-op in it as well. I think having co-op options, fine. But you really need to have a strong single player and strong narrative, because I've talked about this before. Why do people love the MCU? They love it because they love the characters and they love the story. Yes, the action is cool. Yes, seeing the powers is cool. But what's the main thing that made people fall in love with Marvel? They wanted to see what happened next to Tony Stark. They wanted to see what's happening next with Captain America. What's happening, with Thanos. Like all this buildup of story. Story is such a core pillar of the MCU. That's why people love superheroes. That's why the comics have been popular for so long. It's not just the powers. Yeah, the powers are cool, but people love the characters. And you can do a lot more in a story-focused game with that than something games as a service. So I would say that multiplayer stuff's not out of the question, or other genres, but I do think that single player is going to be where you see the most success. Drift 23. Benji boy, hope you're doing well. Do you think Knights of the Old Republic remake will ever come out? Yes. If so, when? Long time from now. Also, does the troubled development decrease the chances of Knights of the Old Republic 2 getting a remake or a new KOTOR game? So for the first part of your question, do I think it's going to come out? Yes. It sounds like this might be moving to Saber Interactive, who's a good developer. We don't know that for sure, but it looks like that Knights of the Old Republic has left Aspyr and is now going to Saber Interactive. I do think this game will 100% come out. I think it's going to be years from now, right? It's 2022. I would not expect this game until 2024 at the earliest. Could even be later, but 2024 at the earliest. Do not expect this game next year. I could not see that coming. You switch a whole developer, and considering it's what it sounds like the state this game was in, you don't put it out the next year, right? I'm sure they'll keep some work, some of the assets, but it ain't going to get a year turnaround. So 2024 is the earliest you can expect this game, and I won't even be shocked if it's 2025. So I do think it'll happen. Now, for the second part of your question, KOTOR 2 or another KOTOR game, that will fully depend on the performance of the first. I don't think a troubled development cycle by itself eliminates the chance for a remake or a sequel of some sort, but this game's got to sell. That's going to really be what it pivots on. If KOTOR Remake comes out, it's well received, it's a huge seller, you're going to get another one. Whether that's a remake of the second game or just a whole new one, 0% chance they don't make another. It's all going to be about sales. And we won't know sales, for years until the game's out. Gary Sanchez, I don't know if you've ever played The Forgotten City. I have, and I loved it. I played it this year. I think I played it in January, and I loved it. What a game. But Nick Pierce, the creator, just recently mentioned that they are working on a new game. Great to hear, Gary. I was blown away by The Forgotten City. If anyone hasn't played this game yet, it's incredible. It's on Game Pass, so if you have Game Pass, you can play it there. I don't think it's on any other subscription services, so you can get it on Game Pass for free if you're subscribed. Otherwise, I encourage you to buy this game. Forgotten City is awesome. It's a very narrative-driven game. Don't expect a ton of gameplay. But, wow, the story is awesome. And the mystery behind everything, and I loved it. I was very impressed by The Forgotten City. Blown away. So, Gary, that's great to see they're making another game. Super chat just dropped. Let me hit that super chat. All right, Highlander with a 5. Thank you so much, Highlander. Great to see you here. And thank you for the super chats and always being so supportive. A week without Benji is like a week without sunshine. Oh, that's very kind. Hope you and your family is doing well. What is your favorite bad guy in video games? So first of all, thank you for the warm words. Thank you for the encouragement. I had a lot of people reaching out, through DMs or whatever and being like, Benji, where's the live chat? I really appreciate that. I say it all the time. I don't have a huge YouTube, right? It's like 3,000 subs compared to like people with millions and hundreds of thousands. But I have a really supportive YouTube audience, right? It's not the biggest, but super supportive. I mean, if you look at my videos, a lot of them hit almost, a third of my subscriber count watching weekly, which is very good, right? Like a lot of YouTube channels, they'll have like 1 million subscribers, but then a lot of their videos do like 50,000. So you're talking, some way more. So to be clear, but I'm saying, you don't see as quite as high of engagement per video. One thing I'm really thankful for is I've got like 3,000 subs and a lot of my streams are doing, 7, 8, 900 views. So almost a third of my audience is watching every week. That's amazing to see. So I really appreciate it, you guys. It's not the biggest audience, but you guys are very supportive. And I love doing these chats. Now, in terms of my favorite bad guy, I grew up on Final Fantasy VII, so Sephiroth's going to be very high up there. Very, very high up there for me. Um, like in the remake, whenever he showed up, I mean, it's just chills for me. So he's going to be very, very high on that list. A couple others that stand out. Great villains. We have a lot of great heroes in games, so we don't have a ton of great villains. Man, that's a great question, to be honest with you. The one that immediately jumped in my mind, Sephiroth, but I'm not getting a ton of other ones. I'm sure I could think of more, but I don't know. On the spot, I'd have to say him. Because I'm not... Kelgrim says, does the darkness in Alan Wake count as a bad guy? I would say yes, but that doesn't... As much as I love Alan Wake, I don't think that would reach my top status for villains. Yeah, that's a great question. There isn't a ton. There's not a ton, to me, honestly, that are like just in your face immediately like, wow, what an incredible villain. Tons of heroes, but Randy says Wesker from Resident Evil. That's a good one. That's an iconic one. But for me, I guess, yeah, number one for me, I'm going to say is Sephiroth. He's number one in my book. Because there's no other one that immediately jumps out like that does. To me, everyone's going to have different things, but I mean, he looks badass. He's got a giant sword. Super intense. I mean, yeah. That's going to be my number one Highlander for me. Split End with a 2 super chat. Dude, thank you so much, Split End, man. You don't have to do that, buddy, but thanks for helping mod the channel. I see JCat here. Thank you, JCat, for helping mod the channel. JCat's still doing the Twitter Spaces on sales in Japan like every week, so make sure you guys jump in JCat's Twitter Spaces. And Split End says, take care of yourself. I'm working on it. I'll tell you what, this last sickness, man, it wiped me out. It wiped me out hard. So... like I said, I'm pretty sure it was COVID. I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised if it was not. So that was a bit of a bummer. All right. Thank you guys for the super chats again. Thank you for the kind words. Where are we at on your free questions? Jason here. Jason, there's demand for a new AAA X-Men game and a Marvel MMO. Do you think Marvel is aware of that? Yes. More importantly, do you think they will make these games and release them this console gen? I don't know about an MMO, but I think you'll definitely get an X-Men game. I mean, that's like one of their most iconic characters. And considering they're going around asking people what, like, to shoot pitches to them, I'd be very surprised if no one's pitched an X-Men game. I'd be shocked. Of all the characters, I mean, X-Men gives you kind of the most options in the MCU, right? If you're not, or Marvel, not MCU. If you're not going to make an Avengers game... basically, the next game that you can make with the most big characters in one game together, it's X-Men. So, I gotta think there's an X-Men game coming, Jason. An MMO, I'm not so sure about. But some sort of X-Men game this generation, yeah, I think you'll get one. I think you'll get one for sure. Be very surprised if that doesn't happen. I mean, you're getting Wolverine. I would say the only way you don't get an X-Men game is if Insomniac wants to make an X-Men game after Wolverine, and maybe they're saving X-Men for them, because we don't know. Wolverine will have other mutants in it. Like, this isn't a spoiler alert. I don't see how you make a game about Wolverine and have 0 other mutants show up, right? So I don't think it's going to be like he's in the X-Men. I have a feeling this will be like something before that, or, on his own. But you're going to see other mutants. You just can't make a Wolverine game without that. So the only way I would say that you don't get an X-Men game this gen from someone else is if, Insomniac has kind of told Marvel, hey, let us make a Wolverine game, and if this is successful, we want to follow it up with a straight-up X-Men game sequel, using the same Wolverine character. You never know. Like, they might want to do something like that. So maybe they hold X-Men for Insomniac, but otherwise I think you'll get it. SD. If you don't buy, somebody else will. You're right. When will Sony resume their acquisitions? Lots of months being very quiet after the Bungie deal in Haven. Nothing thoughts. Well, I've said this. They're going to slow down across the board. Unless you're Embracer. PS Studios Herman Holst answer to Jim Ryan, not Bungie. Bungie is a subsidiary of SIE. Yeah, Bungie's going to be their own thing. Their own thing. So Bungie answers as well to Jim Ryan. And how much money Destiny makes per year, that goes to Sony. If the Bungie's next IP is a big success, do you think Sony will keep investing in live services? Thanks. So I said this before when someone asked me, expect acquisition fever to definitely slow down right now because inflation. And there's signs that things are getting in a positive direction, right? It looks like inflation might be slowing down, and it also looks like we might be avoiding a huge recession, at least here in the U.S. It's looking like we might avoid it. There was some questions about it. We don't want to jinx ourselves, but it looks like we might dodge the recession like in a big way. And it looks like inflation might be getting under control. But keep in mind, these deals take a very long time. So anything that would have been ready to be announced right now, you would have been making these discussions back when inflation was popping off and things were starting to go crazy. So I've been telling you, expect acquisition fever, acquisition season to be a little more chill right now. Now, does that mean you're going to see no more acquisitions? No. I think you're going to see Sony buy more people. I even think you're going to see Xbox buy more people, but not until Activision's done, which I told you when that was announced, and I had Xbox fans telling me I was wrong. And look who was right. It's all this time later since that was announced, and there's been 0 new Xbox acquisitions. I told you guys that we're not going to risk anything happening to Activision Blizzard falling through. That was way too big of a deal to start throwing other stuff into the mix at the same time. But after that's done, I do think you'll see Microsoft try to get more as well. So I do think you'll see more acquisitions, but right now, apparently unless you're in Embracer Group, don't expect that to go too crazy. When will it resume? Probably if inflation is completely under control and these businesses have a lot of evidence of that, once they're there and they're very confident, okay, inflation's not going to go crazy again. And once they see, hey, looks like we're probably going to dodge a crazy recession, then you'll get more people willing to drop the kind of money it takes to get these big purchases. That's going to be a very scary thing to do whenever you're unsure of the economic future. So I think you'll see some probably, starting to spiral back up again here in the near future, as long as we don't hit a recession. Now, in terms of, like Bungie, yeah, Bungie is going to be an interesting thing because it's very good for Sony, like as a company, because Bungie is going to make them a ton of money, but they have flat out said that Bungie is still remaining fully multi-platform in the future, and also that they aren't really under PlayStation Studios umbrella. Like, are they a part of PlayStation? Yeah, they're part of that overall ecosystem, but they are operated differently than the typical PlayStation studios. So they're very, very good for Sony. I'm not expecting any exclusives out of Bungie because they were very clear in the wording that this is going to be a fully multi-platform focus still. However, you're going to get bonuses for being on PlayStation, right? They're going to encourage you to get these games on PlayStation. So as a PlayStation user, will you see some benefits from Bungie? I think so. I think future Destiny expansions, you'll get probably some exclusive stuff. I think whatever their next IP is, you'll get bonuses or whatever for playing on PlayStation. So I think that there will be perks for PlayStation, but yeah, they're from what they said, like it wasn't like vague. They flat out said that they're going to still be fully multi-platform. So don't expect like tons of exclusive games from Bungie. I think we had a second super chat drop. We did. We just had another one hit. Highlander with a 5. Can Sony make an acquisition the size like Activision and Embracer Group making? I have heard from fans of both say yes and no, so what is the scoop? Oh, in terms of money, they can make acquisitions way bigger than Embracer. Way bigger. Sony's got way more money than Embracer. It ain't even close. So like I said, you can't just look at market cap, but like listen to this, right? What's Embracer Group's market cap right now? I think that they were at like, and again, market cap doesn't have everything to do with acquisitions, but I'm just saying to give you a comparison of the differences in the size of these companies. I believe they're at 8 billion for Embracer. I believe is what it was. Yeah. Yep. So Embracer market cap is right around 8 billion, right? $8 billion US. Now let's look at Sony's market cap to give you a comparison. Sony's market cap is $109 billion. That gives you some perspective. Sony could outright buy Embracer if they wanted to. I ain't joking. They could do it if they really wanted to. The question comes down to, does Sony want to make acquisitions the size of like what Microsoft's doing with Activision Blizzard? Could Sony buy Activision Blizzard? I actually don't think so. Like, I think if that deal would have been announced beforehand, like let's say Microsoft didn't do it, that wasn't going down, I don't think Sony would have been willing to spend that kind of money, right? So a deal the size of that, which is utterly gargantuan, right? Like, let's see what, off the top of my head, I'm brain farting on their market cap. Yeah, so I mean, they're at $62 billion, and they're, Microsoft's buying them for more than that. I don't think Sony could have swung something like that, right? That's going to be something that really only Microsoft can do, or the other tech giants, right? We're talking like the Googles, the Apples, that sort of thing. No. Now, could they make acquisitions the size of what Embracer's buying? Not only could they buy the stuff that Embracer's buying, they could buy Embracer if they wanted to. They do have the money. They could make that happen. Now, it would make a giant dent. The big question with Sony has always been, are they willing to spend that kind of money, right? They have the money, but it's a deeper impact on them to make the ultra big acquisitions than it is on Microsoft. Microsoft is a $1 trillion company. They can go out and buy something like Activision Blizzard, and it don't really affect them. It affects them so little that there has been zero questions on any earnings call ever about this deal from the day it was announced. I have never heard even one single question on any earnings call ever from an investor about Activision Blizzard. They haven't even asked about it. The same thing happened with Bethesda. When Microsoft announced they were buying Bethesda, I listened to every earnings call. No one ever asked about Bethesda. These to Microsoft, these kinds of purchases, they're huge, right? But they make so much money, it's small potatoes. For Sony, a huge acquisition, right? Not these smaller ones that are a couple $100 million or like $1 billion. Once you start getting up into these, you're going to be dropping $8 billion. You're going to be dropping $10 billion. Like these really big purchases. Once you start going up into that range, it affects Sony a lot more than it affects Microsoft. So can Sony make some giant purchases? Yes, they have the capital to make that happen. The question is, are they willing to make purchases that big, or are they going to keep doing like they are right now, where they're making some good buys, but if you notice, they're making like smart financial buys. They're not like super crazy inflated price tags for these studios. So that's the big question. Highlander, I do think that Sony is going to get one big one. I've been saying that for a while, like bigger than Bungie. What that's going to be, I don't know. But I've been thinking for a while that there's going to be something bigger than Bungie. I don't think there's going to be multiple bigger than Bungie, but I think they'll have one thing up their sleeve that's really big. All right, Benji here with a 5. Thank you so much, Benji. Benji, Nintendo has been very quiet. I agree, they have been very quiet. With no E3 time showcase, is a Switch 2 reveal near? Apart from Breath of the Wild 2 and Prime 4, no real games roadmap. Yeah, Nintendo is very interesting right now because they've had a stellar year, actually, in terms of output. But in terms of like upcoming news, upcoming slate, it is very quiet. Very quiet. Benji, I've been saying this a lot. I do think that the Switch successor is next year. I really think it is. My question has always been now, recently, is if it's going to be early in the year, middle of the year, end of the year. I really think Switch's successor is 2023. I really, really do. I won't be like shocked if it's early 2024, but I'll be shocked if it's later than early 2024. So is a reveal near? I don't think they would do a reveal before the holiday season. I really can't see them doing that. They're going to want to ride out Switch for, one last holiday by itself. Assuming Switch 2 or whatever the successor is next year, they would at least want this next holiday to be unaffected by it. So keep in mind that last time, yes, they had said that NX was coming, but they didn't actually reveal the Switch until January. Like, that's when it had the big blowout, of like all the stuff, like the big, huge blowout, right? Wasn't that January of 2017 that came out in March? That's when they had the huge direct. Let me make sure that's right. But they had, like, of course, talked about a console before that. Can't remember. I could be, stupid. But I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was January of that year that they announced it. So, or did all the big reveals. So, yeah, we'll have to see. They could still do another Direct this year, right? They can still do announcements this year. It's not too late. They still can. So, I still won't be surprised if you see Direct this year, but that doesn't shake my belief that a new Switch is coming next year either way. I think either way there's a new Switch. Necro XID disagrees with me. Makes sense. A lot of people are going to disagree right now on this, but I fully believe it's happening. Switch is selling big, but it is coming down. Like, how many years are you going to ride out decreases? It peaked 2 years ago. 2020 was its peak. 2023 will be 3 years past peak. You're going to go 4 years past peak? You're going to ride out 4 years past your peak? It's still selling a lot, but it's coming down. And semiconductor shortages are wrapping up to a degree that we're seeing GPU prices free fall, and Sony and stuff being very confident in their forecast for 18 million. By next year, I really don't think chip shortages will be an issue for almost anyone. So, Necro, I totally get it. A lot of people are going to have different opinions on Switch, but I don't know. I think a new Switch next year makes a lot of sense, especially in the holidays. I'm not so confident that they need it early in the year, but I don't know. Going 4 years past your peak would be pretty wild. That'd be pretty wild. We're going to launch 4 years after our peak year? You can. That's pretty wild. Even if numbers are still high. All right, but I get it. I'm not saying you're wrong. You might even be right. I just think that's an interesting strategy if Nintendo does that. Frostbite with the super chat here with a 5. Whoa, this is surprising. A Days Gone movie was just reported to be in development? What? What? Let me see this. You guys are hitting me with the breaking news on chat. Is this like reported or rumored? What's the source? I'm not saying you're wrong. Heck, maybe one's really coming. I'm shocked, though. Who's the source? Does anybody know? That one would be a surprise to me. I'm not opposed to it. I really liked Days Gone. I'm one of those people that thought that game was super underrated. I platinumed Days Gone, but I played Days Gone way after a lot of people did. So I heard at launch that this game was like plagued with bugs and issues. I played Days Gone like way later. I don't remember how much later, but it was like 6 months or more later. And whenever I played it, it was in good shape. And I really enjoyed it. I actually think Days Gone is an underrated game. I platinumed it, loved it. I would have loved to see a sequel to that game. Deadline. Source is Deadline, so it's legit, guys. That is interesting. So it's coming. Deadline you can trust, guys. Deadline is legit. Okay. So do I think it'll get a sequel? Man, I hate to say it, but no. I still don't think it'll get one. Because Bend is making a new IP. So maybe. Don't call it a 0% chance. Don't call it a 0. Maybe the movie's a huge success. We'll have to see, right? If the movie blows up, there's been a lot of demand from fans of the first game to get a sequel. Like, they've been vocal for years. You still see people, like, if you go to Ben's comments on, like, their tweets, or anytime, like, Sony tweets out anything about Days Gone being on sale or anything, there's a lot of people, like, where's the sequel? That game didn't have, like, the biggest fan base of all the Sony games, but I think the people that liked that game really liked that game. I would put the odds of Days Gone 2 very low, but I wouldn't put them at 0% if they're willing to make a movie. If the movie blows up, maybe that incentivizes them. Ben's making a new IP right now, though, so that's the big issue. The big issue is what if Ben's new IP blows up, and it's way bigger than Days Gone ever was. It's going to be kind of hard to convince Ben and Sony to go back to Days Gone when they now have a new franchise that's potentially even more successful. You're probably going to want to follow that new IP up. So Frostbite, I'm not going to put it at 0, especially with this. I would have put it at 0 before this. But a movie, I mean, you never know. You never know. If the movie's a huge success, I'm not going to say it will be, but if it were to be, could change things up. You never know. That's a pretty big development. And crazy to see. I was not expecting that. S with a 2 super chat. Thank you so much, S. Recent reports, will next Grand Theft Auto tone down offense? I think you mean, is it going to be like less offensive? This is going to be really interesting because they're going to be writing a really like wait, what? What's happening? Okay, I'll get to this after. All right, Anthony says, I bought Days Gone at launch. Deacon caught on fire 15 hours into my playthrough and stayed on fire the rest of the game because I didn't want to restart my save. That's hilarious. Yeah, like I said, I heard Days Gone was very glitchy at first. I heard it was very glitchy. When I played it, like, the glitches were... I platinumed it and I experienced almost nothing. But I played it way later. So I can see why some people were pretty hard on the game for performance issues early on. But luckily, when I got to Days Gone, it was in pretty good shape. And I think it's an underrated game. But I get why some people wouldn't like it. But I really enjoyed that game. A lot, actually. Now, S is asking, I believe, is the next Grand Theft Auto's tone going to be less offensive? They have a very, very tricky line to ride with the next Grand Theft Auto. Because on one hand, I totally get that, you know, times change, right? And nowadays, you know, it's just not cool to be super bigoted person, right? Whether that's over, you know, sexuality, whatever it is, right? It's not a great look to be out there and be bigoted, right? We don't want to see that kind of stuff. At the same time, part of what has made Grand Theft Auto so successful for many, many years is it's willing to push the envelope, just like South Park. So they have a very tricky line to ride. The next Grand Theft Auto, if it's like, we haven't seen this game yet. We only have reports. If it comes out and it's not like offensive at all, right? They're playing it very safe. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that's going to go well for them. I think that would impact sales. No matter how big Grand Theft Auto is, I think if you lose the identity of the franchise, it's going to impact you, right? That's not going to be true of everything, but for something like Grand Theft Auto, it would be like if you watch South Park and all of a sudden it was like super clean. It would be like, what's the point of watching South Park, right? At the same time, you can push the envelope without also being an asshole, right? And pardon my language. So I think that they definitely still need to make this game offensive to some people. Like, that's what you do if you're Grand Theft Auto. But I think you have to find the ways to be offensive and pushing the envelope without also just outright being hateful, right? There's a difference. There is a difference between being outright hateful towards different groups of people and also being offensive, crude, that sort of thing. So it's going to be a tough line. Like, that's the reality. It's going to be tough. I get them wanting to clean some things up. I think that is the right thing to do, to clean some things up. But at the same time, you know, no one wants a squeaky clean Grand Theft Auto. That's just not the kind of game that we want to play if you're a Grand Theft Auto fan. So it's going to be interesting, They're going to have to handle this very expertly. You know, it's going to have to take a lot of work to make sure you ride that fine line. How can we push the envelope but also not be jerks? So it'll be interesting, We'll have to see. All right, super chats are cleared again for now. Thank you for all those super chats, guys. Let's get rocking on some more free questions. I'm going to be going for about 15 to 20 more minutes, somewhere around there. Sean Macias, what do you think will be the next major acquisition after Embracer Group acquired Lord of the Rings? Also, when are you going to get verified on Twitter? You are almost at 50,000 followers. Sean, I don't think Twitter's going to ever verify me. I don't know if they've got some issue with me or what. Twitter verification's super weird because I know people with, and this isn't any shade at all. I don't mean this in a shade way. I mean, the verification process is super weird. Because I know some people with very, very low follower accounts that are verified that do very little traction on Twitter, right? Like you're not generating a ton of interest to the website itself. And this is, to be very clear here, this is not shaded at anyone. I started off with like 0 followers like everybody else. I want everyone to be successful. So whenever I'm saying the verification is weird and what I'm describing here, stay with me, hear the whole point before you think it's being Benji with an ego or anything like that, because it's not the end of the world to me if I never get verified. I'm just explaining how I think, and a lot of people you'll talk to will say this, the verification process is like real weird. So, you know, you have some people that they'll verify that, you know, have a low follower count, let's be honest, not driving a ton of engagement on the platform. But then you'll also have people with high follower accounts. Like, why is Shinobi not verified? The dude has 100,000 followers, you know, great in the video game industry, generates a lot of traction on Twitter. You know, why is Nibelian not verified? This dude has like, doesn't Nibelian have like 300,000 followers or something like that? Like, you would think a successfully run platform for social media would want to verify the accounts that are driving the engagement on the platform. You see what I'm saying? You would think that, hence that's part of the reward, right? Why you want people to really engage with your platform. You want them to work up. You want them to get that verification badge, right? Twitter has a bit of a weird way of doing it where it's like real hit or miss. I mean, I know people way bigger than I am, way more engagement driving than I am, and they can't get verified. But then you'll have someone with like, and again, this isn't shade, you'll have someone with like, you know, 600-700 followers that gets the verification badge. It's super weird to me that that's the way it works. But 50,000 followers is a decent amount, but I am by no means famous. I don't expect to ever be verified. I've applied like 3 or 4 times, and every time they tell me no. So I don't know if I'll ever apply for it again, to be honest. If they just come to me and verify me, great. But Sean, I'm not expecting to get verified ever. I suspect I will never get a verification badge. Because Twitter is basically, Twitter rewards you more for what you do off-site than on-site. That's one way I always describe it when people ask me about what I think about Twitter verification. It's hilarious. It's the only social media platform I know of that rewards you more for what you do outside of Twitter than on Twitter. Like, they'll give you a verification badge if you write, you know, for a website, but you generate almost no traction on their own site, you know, they'll give you the verification badge because of what you do off-site. But if you're on-site driving millions and millions and millions of engagement, they won't verify you for what you're doing on their own site. Super interesting. Never seen a social media platform do that besides Twitter. But it is what it is. I'm not one of those people that obsesses over verification. I have people ask me, I mean, multiple times a week, Benji, why aren't you verified? I'm small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. And like I said, I don't do huge things outside of Twitter, so I don't expect to ever be verified. I disagree with that. Like, I think I think Shinobi should be verified. I think Nibelian should be verified. Like, I think these guys that drive traction to your platform should be verified. But Twitter has a different thought process than me. Probably part of the reason they're in so much financial problems. All right. Now, who will Embracer acquire next? No idea. No idea who Embracer will acquire next. It could be anyone. Lord of the Rings was such a curveball to me that Embracer, it's like it could be anyone. Throw a dart at a dartboard, and if it hits something, it don't even need to be video games. Maybe Embracer buys them. Once they bought, I mean, this last batch had some weird ones, right? Limited run games. Again, I think that's pretty cool. Maybe it could work out really well for limited run games, getting more funding. So I'm not actually against that at all. But it's just like, whoa, didn't see that coming. And Lord of the Rings, it's like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Who knows? Sean, Embracer's next acquisitions are impossible to predict. Impossible. Throw a dart at a dartboard, and you might be right. I think we had some super chats hit. We did have a couple super chats hit. Joseki with a 5. Thank you so much, Joseki. Great. Very, very appreciate that, Joseki. You're always in every chat and asking great questions. You're so supportive. Benji, I watched the Splatoon 3 Direct, and I think the changes, especially effortless matchmaking with friends, will push sales a lot in the West. Thoughts? I'm in a weird spot with Splatoon 3 where I expected this game to be utterly gigantic. And I don't know if I'm wrong here, but doesn't it feel like the buzz is not crazy for Splatoon 3? I'm being caught off guard by this. There's a lot. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of hype for Splatoon 3. But I thought this game was going to like blow up so much past Splatoon 2. I thought it was going to be like utterly gigantic. And I've seen some stuff where it's like even like pre-orders in Japan, they're improving and they're good. It's not like it's bad pre-orders, but they're not like mind-blowing. I don't know. Joseki, I'm in such a weird spot with Splatoon 3. Do I still expect this to be a huge game? Yes, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind Splatoon 3 is definitely going to sell a ton of copies. I'm wondering if it's not going to break out as high as I thought, but I don't want to say that definitively yet because social media buzz, it's something I pay attention to. It's in my bio. Social media metrics is one of the things I pay attention to, but it's not the end-all be-all. So we need to see Joseki. The game looks great. I think no matter what, this sells a ton of copies. I'm just right now wondering if it's going to like be way bigger than Splatoon 2 or not way bigger. I don't know. It's interesting. JCat's saying they see a lot of hype. I am, but it doesn't feel crazy. Doesn't feel crazy, to be honest. But a lot. It's going to sell a lot. There's not a doubt in my mind it sells a lot. Not a doubt in my mind. But I'm just wondering, when I'm saying I'm comparing it to Splatoon 2, because Splatoon 2 sold incredible. So my question is, how will it compare to Splatoon 2? Launch will be bigger. There's zero doubt. I can't. If this launched smaller than Splatoon 2, that would be a huge red flag, because Splatoon 2 came out extremely early in the life cycle of the Switch. The install base is so much bigger. This should annihilate Splatoon 2's launch. I'm just wondering how it long-term sells better, but I think it will. I still think it will, but it doesn't feel as crazy as I thought the hype would be. But we'll have to see. Yeah, a lot of people talking about the Twitter verification stuff. It's weird. Kellegram, it's not just that Twitter doesn't prioritize video game accounts, because that's actually one of the most talked about things on Twitter. Like if you look at their rankings of stuff, video games is one of the most talked about things on Twitter. It's like video games, movies, and pop culture and politics. That's like the main things Twitter discusses. So it's not that, like Dangerman says, discussing film isn't verified for some reason. There's a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of huge accounts that just don't get verified. It's bizarre. And I don't include myself in that. 50,000 to me it's a cool number. It means I'm known. I don't consider myself famous, right? I'm not a famous person. For me, I think if you have 100,000 followers, you should be verified. Like auto. You have 100,000, check mark. It should just be an auto thing. You hit 100,000 subscribers, you get the check. That's how it should be, in my opinion. But and other accounts too. Like I said, I'm not throwing shade. If you're a great journalist, something like that, you should get that check mark. But I also think Twitter needs a way of encouraging engagement on their own platform. Twitter makes a lot of not great business decisions. It's why they've had a lot of financial problems over the years. I think that's one way right there. 100K auto check. You know, as long as you're not like, you know, a crappy person. But like if you're getting good engagement for the platform, 100,000 followers, you get auto verified. That's the way it should be. Necroid with a 5. I wanted to do this for a long time. Oh, sweet. Thank you for the super chat, and I appreciate that. What are your expectations on Xenoblade 3's sales now? Also, my bets on Switch 2 launch period, March 2025. Bold. Okay, Necro. Hey, dude, there ain't nothing wrong with that. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of debate on Switch 2's successor, you know, launch date. I'm seeing it all across the board. 2023 predictions, 24 predictions. I've even seen a couple 2025s. That is extremely bold, but I've seen it. You're not the only one, Necro. I've seen a couple other people say 2025 as well. Listen, Switch is going to be interesting because it's a bit of a weird scenario where it's pretty far past its peak now, and that's going to continue. Like I said, 2023 will be 3 years post-peak. But it's a bit of a weird scenario because sales are so high. It's like do you keep riding that? Do you get this success rate? Like I get all the different viewpoints on this one. Like this is one where I don't have a hard stance. Like it needs to be this. Like I get it. Dude, there's a lot of debate you could have around a successor. For me, I think the one thing I will say, Necro, is I think after 2024 is too late. That's the one thing I've always said. I think this thing needs to be 2024 at latest. You're getting 4 years past peak at that point. I mean, that is so late. 2025, you'd be 5 years post peak. Crazy. So, but I mean, I could see Nintendo writing it out. I don't think you're crazy for saying that. The one thing that I really, truly do believe is later than 2024 is too late. That's been my only hardball stance on this has been 2023. I totally get that perspective. 2024, I totally get that perspective. Later than that, though, that I'm not a fan of. But, who am I? I'm a guy on Twitter and YouTube. I don't work at Nintendo. So, they hire people smarter than me. And then expectations for Xenoblade 3 sales. I still expect what I've been saying. I think this is going to be the best-selling Xenoblade game ever. Some people expected this to annihilate Xenoblade 2. I think we have some evidence that it's probably not going to annihilate Xenoblade 2. But is it going to sell better? Yeah. One thing that we need to be very clear on is that a lot of Xenoblade sales are digital. And we don't have digital numbers out of Nintendo for NPD and stuff. I mean, placing top 4 without digital and with only a couple days, good sign for US. I had mentioned on Install Base that it was going to have a good US launch. Apparently there was something floating around that came from like Reset Era or something that this game wasn't going to sell well in the US. I don't know where that came from because the stuff I saw, it was pretty clear it was going to sell well. And you saw that, reflected in the numbers. So, it's going to be the best-selling Xenoblade. I'm very confident in that. I just don't know if it's going to some people wanted this to be like so much bigger than Xenoblade 2. I don't know if it'll do that, but will it improve on the franchise and still be a great success for a JRPG on one platform? Yeah. They'll keep making Xenoblade games, best-selling Xenoblade title. Total sales, it's very hard to say without digital. I'll have like a more better idea on what I would just predict once we get like an actual number from Nintendo. They haven't given us any numbers yet. So once we know what that launch is globally with digital, then you can start to make better guesstimates about where it could go lifetime. But either way, I do think it'll be the best-selling Xenoblade. Highlander, your thoughts on new Saints Row game? I hope it's good. I have it pre-ordered. One thing that we found out from Embracer is that pre-orders are tracking 118% to goal, so almost 20% higher than what their goal was. If sales hit that, that's a great result. Any game that you have, because your goal, obviously you always want to hit better than your goal, but even hitting your goal on sales, it's a great result, right? You don't set a goal in that we're not going to make money. You're making money if you hit your forecast. So and this is just pre-orders, but let's say if the game sells 20% higher than forecast for them, that's a great result. They're going to be very happy about that. So we'll have to see. Pre-orders are looking good for the game now that we have a number for that. Reviews will matter a lot for this one because it's a franchise that's been on ice for so long. I've talked about this a lot. Sometimes reviews for a game are a big deal. Sometimes reviews for a game aren't that big of a deal. Like it honestly, really, like a sports game. Y'all, the Metacritic for Madden 23, it does not matter. Like the reviews do not affect that game. I'm just being real with you. It ain't going to affect it. There's some games, though, that reviews are important on. I think Saints Row's critic reviews will be fairly important because this is a franchise that's been away for a long time. So, and this is kind of almost being seen as like a reboot. So I think it needs to score well. It doesn't need to be a 90 Metacritic, but I would say this at minimum needs to be like really high 70s or low 80s, right? It needs to be in that range. If this comes in under 75 on Meta, that could impact sales. I would say as long as it's over 75. I mean, Saints Row has never been a franchise that's out there getting 90s Metacritic. As long as it's like 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, somewhere in that range. I think that's fine for this type of game. Because like I said, it's never been some prestige franchise. So it's looking good. We need to see how reviews are, but Highlander, I'm feeling pretty good given that pre-order data. All right. I'm going to be wrapping up here soon. But I do want to take a few more free questions. A lot of super chats today, so I didn't get to as many free questions. Thank you guys for those super chats. Thank you for the support. Let me hit a few more before I bounce. A few more rapid fire. Yeah, Cameron says, Switch leading in units once again. When will this train stop? Never seen a 3 to 4 year streak like this. May never again. It is incredible. And like you said, I don't know if we'll ever see this again. Even if Switch 2 is an unbelievable success, I don't know if we see like this many months out of this many months as like number one, right? It's unbelievable, the streak. And we might see it again. It's just, it is kind of crazy, to see that many months. It's nuts. It's only been a handful of months the Switch has been outsold in the last several years. Crazy. Yeah, Switch is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like you said, we may never see this again. Could happen, but it could not. Even if Switch 2 sells as well as Switch 1, we still might not ever see a streak like this again. You know what I mean? Because there just still might be more months where PS5 or Xbox or whatever outsells it. Even if it matched Switch 1 sales, you never know. We might not ever see something like this again in terms of rankings. It's crazy. I think for poor, Benji Golem confirmed. There's a PS Showcase on September, and he was the leaker of the Helldivers 2 clip. Anything you heard about that showcase? Thanks. Like I said, I have not heard insider info about that. I'm expecting one in September. That's been my expectation all year. And I do agree that the Helldiver leak really points to that because it means Sony's getting first-party trailers ready. So it makes sense. Ulfric, thoughts on new Redfall? I think it looks excellent. I'm actually really into this game. Like, really, surprisingly so. Because I loved Prey. I started Deathloop, and it did not connect with me, guys. I hate to say that. I'm going to have to go back to it at some point because I only played it for like an hour, and I was like, ooh, like this game's getting reviewed really well. It is not clicking for me on Deathloop. And I loved Dishonored 1, and Dishonored 2 I kind of fell off as well. So Arcane, while I like their games, and I think they're very well-made games, the only games I've loved from them recently are Prey and Dishonored 1. And I don't know. I think Redfall looks great. Honestly, I think it looks really, really good. So hopefully it lands because I think it looks great. Miles, Benji, do you think PlayStation made a mistake closing talented studios like Zipper, Evolution, Japan Studio, Liverpool, etc.? Do you think PlayStation should have given these studios a second chance? These studios would have filled their lack of variety. Well, a couple things. A lot of those were closed a long time ago. Japan Studio is like a more recent thing. But like a lot of it was quite a bit back now. And do I think you would have necessarily seen that many closings now? No. Because the demand for exclusives is rising. Exclusives, I've been saying this for a while. Exclusives are more important right now, and exclusive content is more important right now than it has ever been in the entire history of the video game industry. The reality is that the PS3 and 360 gen mostly ran off third party, like for the vast bulk of that. And is that still true in a big way for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series? Of course. However, as you're starting to see the rise of subscriptions and the rise of really long-term late leg sales through digital platforms and things like that, it's becoming more and more important. There's a reason why you're seeing all these acquisitions, right? It's not just for the heck of it. They're not just all of a sudden buying all these studios between Sony and Microsoft because they're like, we're just decided we're going to spend money. No, they know, just like I'm saying, exclusive content right now and in the upcoming years is more important than it has ever been. So do I think you would have necessarily seen right now Sony close all those studios? Really doubtful to me. I think they would have tried to find a way to pivot them more. I know some of these are more recent, like Japan. Though it seems like they're kind of trying to want to reboot Japan with Asobi. I know they're different, but kind of. They kind of see like Asobi as like the spiritual successor, if you will, it seems, to Japan Studio. So at the time, was it a mistake closing someone like Zipper or Evolution? Hard to say. They probably weren't making money. And back then, Sony probably was not as concerned with something like content output like they are now. So at the time, maybe it made sense. Do I think if those studios all existed right now, you would see Sony close them? No. No, I don't think so at all. I think they would have found ways to pivot. I think you'll see very few first-party studio closures from anybody anymore. They'll find ways to keep them alive. You need the content, especially as subscriptions rise. Guys, last quarter in the U.S., the only area in the video game industry that saw growth was subscriptions. That was it. Nothing else. Hardware? Nope. Accessories? Nope. Software? Nope. What did? Subscriptions. I've been saying this a lot. Subscriptions are going to be a massive part of the future. Now, is everything else going to die but subscriptions? No, but these are going to become billions of dollars of revenue generating services. So it's very important to have content for them. Venom, PlayStation lacks talent in Japan. They own 20 plus studios and only 2 of them are Japanese. Do you think they need more? Also, should they make games that attract Japanese market like JRPGs, RPGs, MMOs, etc.? I think that Sony feels like Japan is kind of a lost cause for them with Nintendo. And I think they're just fully focused on the West. Now, I think they still think Japan is an important market for them. I think, you're seeing Asobi grow. I think they said that they're at like 60 now and they're trying to get to over 100. So do I think they need more Japanese, like in terms of first party? Yeah, I'd always be in favor of that because, Japanese games are so different than those of the West, right? If you see a game that's made in the UK and a game that's made in the United States, are they different? Yeah, there might be a little different quirks between them, but they're pretty similar. To be honest with you, a game made in Europe and a game made in the US, in a lot of ways, they're very similar. One thing that makes Japanese games so special is they are very different, right? I'm not going to say that there's zero overlap, but Japanese games, we all know, they just have a very different feel than those in the West. So I'm always going to root for anybody to have more Japanese support, but I think Sony is so focused on the West because it's overall a bigger market, and I also think that internally they're like, how do we compete with Nintendo? That's a big problem for them in terms of Japan. Nintendo is so utterly dominant, it's unbelievable. The domination of Nintendo in Japan is like nothing we've seen in any other market. Like literally, there's not a single market in the world right now that's as dominated by one platform as Nintendo dominates Japan. It's insane. Sam Jack, Benji, do you think PlayStation and Xbox plan is to release a couple first-party titles yearly? Xbox is going to have 4 or more. Do you think it is possible to achieve that goal? Yes. 4 or more for Xbox, probably starting in 2023. And PlayStation, a minimum of 3. Minimum of 3. So, yes. 100% achievable. You're going to see 4 or more from Xbox from 2023 probably on for the indefinite future. I mean, we already know 3. We already know 3. They already have Forza, Redfall, and Starfield. And there's more coming. So 4 is going to be your minimum out of Xbox. And Sony, I really can't see them doing under 3 and probably even 4. John, what are your sales predictions on A Plague Tale Requiem now that it's gone gold? It will overperform. First one overperformed in a big way. Now, does that mean that Requiem is going to be like a 10 million unit seller out of the gate? No. But Plague Tale Innocence was a huge cult hit. This game's going to do really well on Game Pass. It's going to do really well on PlayStation. And it's going to get people talking. I bet it reviews really high too. First game was amazing. And it's coming out. I know October starts to get stacked, but we've been pretty light on games for months. Requiem's going to do very well. Yeah, very well. Again, don't expect something crazy. Like, don't expect 10 plus million launch, but it's going to do very well. Yes. If Warner Discovery can't find a buyer with a good price for WB Games, what do you think will happen to them? Shut down? No, they won't shut them down. Also, what will happen to WB Montreal if Gotham Knights fails shut down? You know, Ghost, this is the ever discussion. Did you guys see what's happening with HBO Max? So, you know, I've been telling you guys this for a long time. Ever since, all this stuff started spinning up. David Zaslav is a cost-cutting CEO. They just removed a ton of originals from HBO Max. Why did they do that? Do you want to know why they removed those shows that are their own shows, that are their originals off of HBO Max? They did it so they don't have to pay out royalties for these shows continuing to be on the service. Cutting costs. And it's a pretty crappy thing to do that, to be honest with you. But that's what they're doing. Zaslav has been this way since before they even bought WB. He runs a very tight company, right? He's one of those CEOs. There's all sorts of different kinds of CEOs. All sorts of strategies. David Zaslav runs a tight ship. We talked about this, a chat or two ago. I still think, even with the video games being a big contributor to their last quarter, I still think that David, given the choice, sells WB Games. Because, as I mentioned, he likes quick returns and not a ton of crazy investment. Video games take a minimum of 3 years, and that's generous. Most games nowadays take 4 years. Some take 5 years. And they are hundreds of millions of dollars to make. So you're putting hundreds of millions of dollars into something, and you're hoping 4 to 5 years from now, you get money back for that. That does not sound like David Zaslav. Maybe he's had a change of heart. Does not sound like the way he runs his business. So I'll be very surprised if they keep WB Games. You never know. I'm not going to say it's impossible. You never know. Now, if they can't sell them, do I think they shut them down? No, but I think you will see some restructuring and some changes. Maybe they reduce scope. Maybe they have some layoffs and keep these studios small and tight, and you just don't see the sort of long-term AAA, games out of them as much. You never know. It's really hard to say. I don't think they'll outright shut WB Games down, though, like the whole division, if they can't sell it. I don't think that. But I think you will see changes, yeah. He's changed every other part of WB's business. It's foolish to think he won't touch games. It's only a matter of time. He will one way or another. All right, I got to wrap this up soon, but, there's so many questions I didn't get to today. Like, tons. I'm just going to do like 1 or 2 more, so I got to go to work. Yog Yang, Microsoft will have a lot more variety post-Activision deal. Yep, they will have games for everyone they cover, many genres. How do you think Sony should respond to that? Ooh, it's a great question. Microsoft is going to have a ridiculous amount of genres this year, or this generation. I know it's the long story of Microsoft, and trust me, I'm getting as tired of saying it as everyone else is. At some point, once all these studios are hitting, it's going to be a crazy output. It's just inevitable. It's just math, right? And I know, trust me, you guys preaching to the choir. It's getting really old saying that every year, right? I love Xbox, but it's getting really old being like, it's coming. It's coming. Like, at some point, all these studios are going to start hitting. It just is math. It is inevitable. I believe that starts in 2023. Genre is going to be one thing they definitely are not hurting on. First-person shooters, RPGs, there's third-party games, there's Hellblade, there's all kinds of stuff. It makes sense why they're going so genre diverse heavy, because Game Pass. Now, how does Sony combat that? I don't know if Sony's as focused on having tons of different genres, to be honest with you. There's going to be some of that, but I think they're really focused on 2 things: games as a service multiplayer titles and big story games. I think that's their main focus. Big story games, because that's what they built their entire backbone of their first party on. And then games as a service games to give them multiplayer, microtransaction, long-term revenue. I don't know that Sony is... I think they'll depend on third party a lot for a lot of the other genres. Doesn't mean they won't explore other stuff, but I think they're going to depend on third party for a lot of that. Whereas Microsoft, one reason why they're going to be driven to be so genre diverse is because Game Pass, right? That gives them an incentive, a reason to offer a lot of variety. Randy, Benji, what are your review predictions for Redfall, Starfield, Forza, Diablo, and Minecraft Legends? Also, which game do you think will bring in the most Game Pass subs? Okay. Game Pass subs is easy. Starfield. Starfield will be number 1. Ooh, or Diablo 4. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, guys, Diablo is huge. Oh, man. I hadn't really thought about it between those two. Man, that is honest to God tough. On the surface, it might sound easy to say Starfield, but y'all, Diablo is freaking huge. I mean, what's Diablo 3's total players up to? It's something ridiculous. Because, dude, the PC subs for Diablo, holy jeez. Where is Diablo 3's total players at, dude? It's something ridiculous. Dude, back in 2015, that game had already sold Diablo 3. 2015, think about how long ago that was. That game had already sold over 30 million copies. And as of 2022, according to Rod Ferguson, Diablo 3 has had over 65 million players. Holy jeez. Okay. Dude, that is hard. It might be Diablo. I know that sounds crazy. Diablo might be the biggest out of those in terms of subs. It's going to be Diablo or Starfield. Now, in terms of review predictions, Redfall, I don't think this will be a 90s Metacritic game like Deathloop was. Didn't that get 90s plus? I just think the co-op aspects, some of the tone might not line up for all reviewers. I'm expecting, if I had to predict, this is such a who knows, but I'll say low 80s, 82, 83, something like that. Starfield, oh boy. My controversial take is I don't know this will be 90s plus. High 80s, I'll say, for Starfield. High 80s, 87, 88, somewhere around there. So low 80s for Redfall, high 80s for Starfield. Forza, high 80s. Diablo 4 might be 90s. It might. Looks amazing. And Minecraft Legends, I have no clue. Literally, I have no idea. That could go anywhere. The only one out of those that I think is very likely to hit 90s is Diablo. That's the only one I feel really likely on. I think Starfield will be close, but 90s is pretty hard to get nowadays. You've seen Horizon miss it with both the Horizon games. You've seen Spider-Man miss it. 90s is a hard bar to hit nowadays. I think Starfield will get high 80s. I think it's going to do well. The only one there that I think has a real good shot at it's Diablo. I think Diablo has a good shot. All right, I think I have to wrap it, dude. I really am going to miss a lot of questions. I'm going to hit this last one from Danger Man. Danger Man here. Benji-Sales, since Elden Ring sold 16.6 million by the end of June, surely it's getting close to 18 million by now. Well, it's doing around 1 million a month. So, probably close, but not quite. It's not to 18 yet, but it's definitely over 17, yes. It's over 17, not to 18 yet. Because you got to think, probably going to slow a little bit this quarter compared to last. And last quarter it was doing around 1 million a month. So, it's over 17 for sure, not quite to 18. Close to 19 by the end of this quarter / September, 20 million in November. 20 million this year there's zero debate. There's none. This game has not been heavily discounted yet. It's doing 1 million a month, and I think the cheapest it's hit in the US is $45. I mean, this game's going to be $30 this holiday, and it's going to get the holiday boost. So, I mean, 20, don't even debate it. It's over 20 million this year. 20 million in November? Potentially, yeah. If it has good Black Friday sale. Yep. Could hit 20 million in November. Absolutely. Yep. It's going to be big this holiday. It's going to be very, very big. Because that's probably going to be the first time you see Elden Ring hit $30. So, on Steam and on in the US. So, yeah. Probably $30 this holiday, and it'll be over 20 million by the end of the year. Yes. Okay, I got to call it there, dude. Let me make sure I didn't miss any questions, but I missed tons, I know. But let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I have to go to work. I'm sorry. I missed tons. I hate to say it, but once I post the links for these chats, you guys got to get in early on news weeks like this, where we have so much topics to talk about. Okay, everyone, thanks for another great stream. Thanks for all the encouragement for me about being sick. Like I said, I think the worst is behind me now. I'm coming out on the other side. So thanks. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Helps the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already. We do one of these chats every week, except for whenever I'm like sick or something. So we will be back next week unless something crazy happens. Make sure you guys catch me tomorrow morning. Xbox Chatter Days. I'm in U.S. Central Time. We'll be live at 11 a.m. my time. So whatever time that is for you guys, 11 a.m. U.S. Central Time. Xbox Chatter Days with Windows Central and Miles. Be there tomorrow. We're going to talk all things Xbox. And yeah, thanks everyone for a great stream. Thank you for the super chats. Stay safe, play some games, and I will see you either here on YouTube next week, or if you follow me on Twitter, I'll see you real soon. Thanks everybody. Bye. Have a